Just after you recovered from one bitterly fought election in the US, the country seemingly rips itself apart again in another, held on Tuesday the 16th, 2018. This will be part 1 in a 3-part video series explaining what these elections are all about, why they're so important, and finally what they mean for President Donald Trump as well as the future of the US. Firstly, the background. Every 2 years, 33 or 34 of the 100 Senate seats and all 435 seats in the House of Representatives are up for grabs. These specific elections are called midterms, as they take place halfway through the president's 4-year term. The Republicans, Democrats, and many other smaller parties have field candidates in hopes of holding or gaining seats across the country. In terms that British people can understand, the House of Representatives, or simply the House, plays a similar role to the House of Commons, and is elected in much the same way. The country is broken up into a number of congressional districts, each with roughly equal populations. All representatives serve a 2-year term. Continuing this Westminster comparison, the Senate fulfills the role of the House of Lords. Unlike the House of Lords, however, members of the Senate, called senators, are elected by popular vote on a state-by-state basis. Each state elects 2 senators, regardless of population. All senators serve a 6-year term, but not all are up for grabs in the same election. This year, only 33 Senate seats, one from each of these states, were up for re-election. This year was a bit different, however, as both Minnesota and Mississippi had both their seats up for election. It should be worth noting here that the Minnesota seat was the one Al Franken resigned from after sexual misconduct allegations. Midterm elections are so important as they're an excellent gauge on how Americans feel about the sitting president, arguably the world's most powerful person. But not if you ask Forbes. Using these results, predictions can somewhat be made as to how the presidential election will unfold in 2020. The general sentiment is that President Donald Trump is not doing a very good job. Polling aggregate site 538 showed that Trump's approval rating prior to these elections was in the low 40s. Despite this being a record low rating for a president in recent memory, for Trump it is an all-time high. He has been particularly unpopular amongst women. A poll before the election showed that 63% of all female voters disapproved of his job. Conversely, 47% of all men disapproved. This can be attributed to various controversial statements and numerous accusations. With the departure of UN Ambassador Nikki Haley on the 9th of October, there were only 5 women in Trump's cabinet. It makes sense then that record numbers of women, mainly Democrats, were running for public office. A matter of weeks before the vote, conservative Judge Brett Kavanaugh was appointed to the US Supreme Court. This followed months of Senate hearings regarding his numerous sexual misconduct allegations, including the highly publicized and controversial testimony by Stanford psychologist Christine Blasey Ford. Kavanaugh denied all such claims. Kavanaugh is incredibly pro-life and has historically ruled in favor of cases that allowed corporations to discriminate against members of the LGBT+ community. His appointment essentially gave Republicans control of the Supreme Court and subsequently every single branch of the federal government. Before the elections, the Republicans held a majority in both the House and the Senate, as well as 2/3 of state governorships. They were at their strongest position since the 1920s. With this power, they attempted to introduce numerous reforms with mixed success. Let's start with healthcare. In early 2017, the Republicans began the process to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, President Barack Obama's landmark healthcare legislation. The American Health Care Act was introduced in March of 2017, however was voted down numerous times in both the House and the Senate. This came to a head when prominent Republican senator and former presidential nominee John McCain voted against the bill with a single thumb down. This was McCain's first time in the Senate after having had surgery to remove a tumor in his head as part of his brain cancer treatment. McCain would pass away in August of 2018, aged 81. The Tax Cut and Jobs Act was a successful piece of legislation, though it was not without turmoil and controversy. Trump proposed reducing the current 7-bracket progressive income tax scheme to 3 brackets, with the main recipients of the cuts being the wealthy. The top rate would be reduced from 39.6% to 35%, and the bottom would actually increase from 10% to 12%. After much backlash, the House amended Trump's proposal to include the 39.6% rate for income over $500,000. The final bill would keep the 7 brackets, but would cut each rate, again mainly to higher earners. Trump signed the act into law on the 2nd of December 2017. That concludes part 1. Watch part 2 where I talk about the issues brought up during the campaign and various races that gained major media coverage.